The morning sun peeks through the curtains, but she remains in bed, wrapped in her blanket like a human burrito. Beside her, Bob, the ever-enthusiastic troublemaker, has other plans. He rolls across the bed like a loose cannon, paws flailing, tail wagging, and lets out a series of barks that could wake the entire neighborhood. His mission is simple: wake her up. After all, there's a sacred morning ritual that must not be skipped: his walk. Despite her groggy protests, she eventually surrenders, because no force on earth, not rain, not snow, not even the irresistible warmth of her bed, can keep her from taking Bob on his beloved stroll. Bob, or Bobby as she sometimes calls him when she's feeling extra affectionate, isn't just a pet, he's her most loyal companion. They spend nearly every moment together, whether lounging at home or making memories at the park. It's an unbreakable bond, built on love, trust, and the occasional tug-of-war over who actually sets the walking pace. Spoiler: it's always Bob. Of course, Bob has his moments. His definition of a casual walk involves dragging her across the pavement like a kite caught in a storm, chasing after squirrels with Olympic-level determination, and conveniently forgetting every basic command the moment he spots something interesting. But no matter how much chaos he brings, she wouldn't trade him for anything. Today, however, there's a slight change in routine. She has to leave for work. As she puts on her shoes, she kneels in front of Bob, giving him a serious look. "Be on your best behavior," she tells him, her tone firm but affectionate. Bob, in response, sits perfectly still, his big eyes filled with an innocence that is both adorable and highly suspicious. To seal the deal, he even places a paw in her hand, as if making a solemn vow to be the goodest boy. She knows better. By the time she returns, there's a good chance she'll find something shredded, knocked over, or mysteriously out of place. But for now, she chooses to believe in the illusion of obedience. She gives him one last scratch behind the ears before heading out the door, leaving Bob to his own devices, which, knowing him, could mean anything. Pam kneels down, wrapping her arms around Bob in a tight hug, her heart melting as he plays along for once. Normally, he'd be wiggling out of her grip, but today, he's surprisingly cooperative. She takes it as a small victory, savoring the moment before she has to leave. With one final wave, she steps out the door. Bob watches her go, his tail lowering as he realizes he's all alone. He lets out a soft, pitiful moan, as if hoping she'll come running back. When she doesn't, he sighs dramatically, because, of course, no one understands his struggles. Turning his back to the door, he scans the room, ears twitching as his eyes land on something interesting. And just like that, the sadness vanishes. His posture straightens, his tail perks up, and a mischievous glint flashes in his eyes. Trouble is brewing, and Bob is more than ready. Meanwhile, at work, Pam walks in, offering quick hellos as she makes her way to her desk. She barely has time to settle before Anne appears out of nowhere, eyes sparkling with excitement. Gossip alert. And dives straight into the details of her date from last night, her words spilling out faster than Pam can process. But Pam doesn't even pretend to listen. Without hesitation, she raises a hand, shutting him down before she gets too deep into the story. And doesn't take offense, she knows the drill. At this point, it's tradition. Pam arriving at work means one thing: doggy cam time. That's what Anne calls it, anyway. Pam, on the other hand, calls it making sure her house is still in one piece. She pulls out her phone, tapping the screen with laser focus. The connection is slow, her foot tapping impatiently as the feed loads. Then, finally, the image comes into view. Pam's expression shifts instantly. Anne doesn't even need to look at the screen. She can tell by the way Pam's mouth tightens, and her eyes widen that Bob is up to something. And knowing Bob, it's probably bad. Pam and Anne lean in, eyes locked on the screen. What they see is nothing short of a crime scene. Torn cushions, shredded papers, a suspiciously overturned lamp. Bob has gone full disaster mode. Again. It's almost like he waits for Pam to leave just so he can test the limits of home destruction. and shakes her head, arms crossed. That dog is like a bad nightmare, she mutters, half amused, half horrified. Pam's head snaps toward her so fast it's a miracle she doesn't get whiplash. Don't talk about Bob like that, she snaps, her tone sharp enough to cut through steel. The room goes quiet. It's obvious, Pam isn't just a dog owner. She's Bob's #1 defender, his personal attorney, and possibly his biggest enabler. Anne exhales, hesitating for a second before deciding to press where it hurts. Pam, are you sure this attachment is, healthy? Her voice is softer now, but the damage is done. Wasn't this the same reason your ex left? Pam freezes. The words hit like a slap, sharp and sudden. Her mind flickers back to the past, to arguments she'd rather not relive. It's been a month since the breakup, but the wounds haven't fully healed. Bob, in all his chaotic, furniture-destroying glory, has been her one constant. And whether it's healthy or not, she's not ready to let go of that. Pam had fallen for him the moment they met, completely swept off her feet. Within 6 months, they were living together, wrapped up in what felt like a fairy tale. No kids, no pressure, just them against the world. When they decided to adopt a dog, everything felt even more perfect. That's how Bob came into their lives. A tiny ball of energy with eyes full of mischief. Pam had pictured it, one happy little family, just the 3 of them. But reality had other ideas. One argument changed everything. It wasn't just a fight, it was a breaking point. Her ex, furious beyond reason, gave her an impossible choice, him or Bob. The words had hit her like a punch to the gut. It was cruel, unfair, and in that moment, the fantasy shattered. She'd loved him deeply, but love had made her blind. Once the haze lifted, she saw him for what he was, a selfish jerk who didn't deserve her or Bob. Now, Bob is all she has. He's stubborn, messy, and about as obedient as a rock, but his family. No matter how much trouble he causes, she's determined to care for him. Still, even she can admit, this isn't sustainable. If she keeps coming home to scenes of destruction, she's going to lose her mind. Anne, ever the problem solver, leans in with an idea. You could get a trainer. Someone to keep an eye on him while you're gone. Maybe teach him that pillows aren't chew toys. Pam hesitates. The thought of handing Bob over to someone else, even temporarily, feels weird. But at this point, what choice does she have? It's either a trainer, or coming home one day to find Bob has redecorated her entire apartment in chaotic modern destruction. Pam trudges up the stairs, her mind stuck on the same dilemma. A trainer would help, sure, but who could she even trust with Bob? It's not like she has a list of reliable dog experts on speed dial. And even if she did, there's the whole money issue. Trainers aren't exactly cheap, and her bank account isn't exactly thriving. The more she thinks about it, the more impossible it seems. By the time she reaches her door, exhaustion has fully taken over. She sighs, stepping inside and calling for Bob. No response. That's never a good sign. Her eyes scan the room, and there he is, perched on the couch like a tiny, guilty king, surrounded by absolute chaos. Torn fabric, scattered papers, a throw pillow that looks like it fought for its life and lost. Bob is still, his ears slightly back, his expression carefully crafted for maximum cuteness. He knows. He knows exactly what he's done. Pam doesn't hold back. She screams in frustration, launching into a full rant about how one day she's going to come home and find the entire apartment just gone. Her voice carries through the walls, loud enough to make her neighbors question their life choices. One of them, a young man in the building, hears every word from his room. With an annoyed groan, he rolls out of bed, throws on a shirt, and steps out. He has no idea who she is, but at this point, he's convinced she's either yelling at a very misbehaved child or summoning a demon. Meanwhile, Pam is still fuming. Bob, fully committed to the "I am but a helpless baby" act, slowly wags his tail, waiting for the exact moment her heart melts. It works, because, of course, it does. One glance into those big, round puppy eyes, and just like that, all is forgiven. As she sighs in defeat, something tugs at her sleeve. She barely glances up, assuming it's Bob demanding his evening walk like the little tyrant he is. "Not now," she mutters, waving a dismissive hand. But Bob isn't the one pulling her. The neighbor, standing right in front of her, clears his throat. Are you always this loud, or is this just a special occasion?" The second Bob hears the magic word, walk, all logic leaves his body. His tail wags at lightning speed, his paws scramble against the floor, and before Pam can react, he bolts straight for the stairs, dragging her along like a human kite. Gravity is not on her side. 1 second, she's upright, and the next, she's halfway to eating the floor. But just as disaster is about to strike, strong hands catch her waist, holding her steady. The world stops spinning for a moment, and suddenly, she's pressed against someone with a deep voice and a scent that's an oddly specific mix of cigarettes and vanilla. Her brain, despite everything, takes detailed notes. "Are you okay?" His voice rumbles close to her ear, snapping her out of her daze. She blinks up at him, still processing. Yeah. Thanks." He releases her, stepping back, as if he hadn't just saved her from a very embarrassing trip to the hospital. "You should be more careful," he says, his tone calm but firm. "And maybe learn to control that." He nods toward Bob, who is currently sitting at the bottom of the stairs, completely unbothered. Pam exhales, brushing herself off. Yeah, well, he doesn't believe in control. She looks up at the guy properly for the first time, and that's when she notices it, the tattoo on his neck, dark and intricate. Her curiosity instantly flares. Something about him feels different. He's not exactly warm or friendly, but he's definitely something. And those eyes, striking green, sharp, unreadable. She can't tell if he's irritated, amused, or just regretting stepping out of his apartment at all. One thing's for sure, she has no idea who he is. But now, she really wants to. The guy barely gives Pam a second glance before dropping his first insult of the night. "Maybe don't wear dumb heels if you're planning to walk your dog next time." "Excuse you?" Pam raises a brow, fully prepared to go on the defensive. Bold words from a man she's never met, especially one currently committing a fashion crime. She crosses her arms, eyeing his outfit. "Well, I like my heels," she says, standing her ground. "Regardless of what you think." Her gaze flickers downward, and that's when she spots them, Crocs. With socks. She almost laughs, and this guy has the nerve to judge her footwear. Still, she bites her tongue, deciding to pick her battles. Instead, she settles for a sweet, but obviously fake smile. "Thanks for the tip." But just as she thinks the conversation is over, he does something that leaves her completely speechless. He crouches slightly, looks straight at Bob, and in a low, firm voice says, "Sit." And Bob sits. Instantly. No hesitation. No dramatic resistance. Just instant obedience, like he's been trained by this man his entire life. Pam's jaw practically hits the floor. "Excuse me. Since when does Bob listen to anyone?" She blinks at her dog, who remains completely still, looking like a model citizen. She's never seen him so disciplined. Not even once. The guy straightens up like it's nothing. "I only came downstairs to tell you you're too loud," he says, his tone as flat as ever. "I live upstairs. I work nights. Your yelling wakes me up." Pam opens her mouth, ready to argue, but nothing comes out. She's still too stunned over what just happened. The guy turns to leave, barely sparing her another look. But before he disappears up the stairs, he throws one last comment over his shoulder. "Yelling at him won't make him listen," he says. And just like that, he's gone. Pam's mind races, connecting the dots like a detective piecing together a case. First, Anne told her to get a trainer. Then, she spent the whole day debating the idea. Now this mysterious, slightly rude neighbor just casually controlled her chaotic dog with a single command. It's too much to be a coincidence. It has to be a sign. Before she can overthink it, she grabs his arm, pulling him back. The words tumble out before she can stop them. Can you watch Bobby while I'm at work? The guy blinks, clearly caught off guard. Reasonably so. They've known each other for a grand total of 5 minutes. And now she's handing him her beloved menace of a dog like it's a totally normal request. That's random, he mutters, looking at her like she might actually be insane. But Pam stands her ground. You clearly know what you're doing, and for some mystical reason, Bob actually listens to you, she argues. I'm willing to pay you for it. He tilts his head slightly, his green eyes scanning her like he's trying to figure out if she's serious. After a beat, he steps down a little closer, a slow smirk tugging at his lips. Not a bad plan, he admits. But just so you know, I'm expensive. Pam exhales, only just realizing she's been holding her breath. Maybe, just maybe, she's finally found a solution to her problem. And just like that, something new begins. Where their story leads. Well, that's the fun part. Expensive, that's the word. The young man stands in Pam's apartment, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. He had warned her. He isn't cheap. She glances at Bobby, her beloved but overly dramatic canine, who seems blissfully unaware of the financial negotiations happening on his behalf. So, what's Bob's deal? He asks, nodding toward the dog, who is currently fixated on an invisible enemy in the corner of the room. Pam sighs. He doesn't listen. He panics when I leave. He barks at the wind. The young man smirks. The classic triple threat, deaf to commands, allergic to solitude, and at war with nature. They move to the real reason for his visit, the pay. He names his price. $20 an hour. Pam immediately shakes her head. That's too much. She works full-time, and paying that rate daily would burn a hole straight through her wallet. He shrugs, unmoved. Told you I was expensive. He doesn't budge an inch. A dog's a big responsibility. You love him, right? Pam sighs again. Of course, she does. Bobby is family. Even if he does have the nerves of a soap opera protagonist, she wouldn't trade him for anything. If the best costs a little extra, so be it. Fine. Bobby deserves the best, she says, already mentally calculating which unnecessary expenses, like eating, she'll have to cut back on. It's almost as if Bobby hears them speak English. His ears perk up, and he turns toward her with the dramatic flair of a movie star who just found out they've won an award. The young man, her green-eyed neighbor, nods in approval. All right. We'll start slow. Reduce his anxiety little by little. Our girl watches as he studies Bobby, already slipping into trainer mode. She wonders if her dog knows just how expensive his new coach is. Probably not. But then again, Bob has never had to worry about money. Must be nice. Tyler lays out the plan, gradually shortening his visits so Bob learns to be alone without launching into full-blown dramatics. To keep things moving smoothly, he requests a day's pay up front and a spare key. Pam, impressed by his professionalism, and slightly relieved he's not just some mysterious green-eyed neighbor anymore, wastes no time fulfilling his requests. Finally, a name to the face. Tyler. A step forward. Progress. Not just for her, but for Bobby too. If all goes well, her anxious pup will stop treating her furniture like an emotional punching bag every time she leaves. Maybe, just maybe, she can go to work without worrying about coming home to a crime scene. Excited by all the positive changes, Pam can't wait to tell Anne. The next day, she bursts into work like a character in a sitcom, practically radiating good news. She zeroes in on her friend, grinning ear to ear, words spilling out before and can brace for impact. Anne, a seasoned veteran in handling Pam's enthusiasm, attempts damage control. Sure. Not so loud, too late. The boss shows up. Short. Fuming. Holding a stack of papers like it personally insulted him. Turns out, those papers are Pam's. And they are not in their best shape. She filed them wrong, and now they are riddled with errors. He yells in anger, the weight of his disappointment does the job just fine. Pam's excitement evaporates faster than a puddle in the desert. Anne groans. This day just got significantly longer. Pam, still recovering from the sneak attack, takes full responsibility. No excuses. No defense. Just an apologetic nod and a resigned sigh. Looks like she and Anne are in for a very exhausting shift. Yesterday, our girl had been a wreck. Watching Bobby tear through her apartment like a tiny, furry tornado had left her so frazzled she couldn't focus at work. And now, a mountain of corrections, all thanks to her distracted state. She feels awful. Anne, arms crossed and eyebrows raised, listens to her apology, then smirks. Fine, I'll forgive you, on one condition. Pam narrows her eyes. I'm afraid to ask. Her friend grins, already scheming. Double date. My guy's got a very attractive brother, and I'm fixing you up. But her friend isn't done. She's got a whole game plan. Good food, some laughs, and if things go well, a very eventful nightcap. She even throws in a dramatic eyebrow wiggle for good measure. Our girl's expression is pure dread. She appreciates the effort, really, but the idea of putting herself out there again. No, thank you. She shakes her head, mutters another apology, and shuts it down. Anne sighs, then laughs. Oh, right. I forgot you're the type who thinks every date is the one. Pam winces. I can't help it. I'm a hopeless romantic. I fall in love way too easily. Yeah, no kidding. You'd probably marry the barista if he spelled your name right on the cup. Our girl gasps. That happened one time. Her friend waves her off, then squints. Wait a second, you practically skipped into work today. Spill. What's got you so happy? Pam's face lights up again. It's about Bob. Her friend groans. Of course it is. A sharp voice cuts through their conversation like a chainsaw. Enough. Get back to work. The ladies freeze. Slowly, they turn to see the director glaring at them, arms crossed, radiating pure authority and anger. Do you two think this is a playground? He barks. Before they can scramble out an excuse, a young man steps in, all confidence and misplaced heroics. He assures the boss they'll do their jobs, but he just has to throw in a little dig. Something about how women can't work without side conversations about shopping, shoes, and whatever else he assumes fills their brains. The two friends exchange a look. Oh, this guy. Then, as if his foot isn't already lodged firmly in his mouth, he decides to compliment their looks. Because obviously, that's relevant to the conversation. The men talk like the two women aren't sitting right there, fully aware of every word. Pam clenches her jaw and exhales sharply. Their irritation is palpable. With silent agreement, they redirect their energy. Focus. Work. Get through the day. Except now, every keystroke is fueled by sheer annoyance. It's a struggle, but if they don't finish their tasks, they might have to listen to more nonsense, and that is not an option. Pam stares blankly at her screen, completely lost in thought. How is she supposed to juggle all of this? She hates this job, but bills don't pay themselves, and now, with Bob's very expensive new trainer, she needs this paycheck more than ever. the only thing keeping her sane. Counting down the hours, the minutes, the seconds, knowing that at the end of the day, she gets to go home to Bobby, her chaotic yet lovable reason for pushing through. Then, finally, the bell. Pam and Ann practically launch out of their seats like racehorses at the starting gate. Lunchtime. A sacred break from the monotony of office life. Their packed lunches are ready, and their appetites are fierce. As they make their way out, Pam sighs dramatically. This job is so boring. I don't know how people do this their whole lives. Ann chuckles. Welcome to capitalism, babe. Our girl groans. There has to be another way. Her friend smirks. There is. Quit, take Bob, and run into the wild. Live off the land. Be free. Pam considers it for half a second. Not sure Bob is built for that life. He panics when the microwave beeps. Yeah, fair point. And pops open her lunch and casually asks, so, how's Bobby? Weren't you about to drop some huge news about your little maniac? Pam's eyes light up. Oh, right. Last night was amazing. She launches into the full story, Tyler's plan, Bobby's potential for improvement, the hope that her apartment might actually survive her leaving for work. By the time she's done, she's practically glowing. If things go well, not only will her dog chill out, but she and Ann might actually get some real girl time outside of office hours. A win-win. Ann nods slowly. Processing. Calculating. Then, after a beat, she tilts her head and lays out the facts. So let me get this straight. You met a stranger who claimed to be your neighbor, and you handed him a copy of your apartment key, plus your dog, plus actual money. Pam blinks, and blinks back. Who else is thinking what they are thinking? Silence. Then, Pam's stomach drops. Now that it's said out loud, it does sound insane. A trance takes hold. Her palms suddenly feel sweaty. Did she just make the worst decision of her life? Is Bobby okay? Is her apartment still there? Her friend watches the panic creep in. So, how's it feel knowing you may have just financed your own robbery? And doesn't just react, she explodes. She grabs our female lead by the shoulders, shakes her lightly, and screams, "You got scammed." Pam stammers, trying to explain, but her friend isn't hearing it. As far as she's concerned, her best friend has single-handedly funded a con artist's next vacation. Do you still have access to your doggy cam? She demands. Our girl nods quickly, fumbling for her phone. Within seconds, the live feed pops up. The two lean in. And then, absolute horror. Bobby is sprawled across the couch, completely still, tongue hanging out like a crime scene victim. Cash is scattered across the table like hush money. And Tyler? Nowhere in sight. But his voice, loud and clear, echoing through the apartment, practically screaming at the top of his lungs, "Where's the tequila?" Pam and Ann turn to each other, their faces drained of color. This is so much worse than they thought. Not only is this guy potentially robbing her, but he's also getting drunk while doing it, and Bobby. Is Bobby even breathing? And slams her hands on the table. Go. Now? I'll cover for you. Our female lead doesn't hesitate. She's already grabbing her things, heart pounding. Whatever's happening in her apartment, she's about to find out in person. Pam flies out of the office, jumps into her car, and speeds off, her mind spiraling into pure panic. How could she be so stupid? Bad decisions, bad men, it's a pattern, and poor Bobby is always the one who pays for it. Tears blur her vision. The thought of never seeing Bobby's goofy little face again, of losing him forever, it's unbearable. She grips the wheel tighter, pushing the speed limit, every second feeling like a lifetime. She screeches to a stop in front of her building, barely remembering to put the car in park before bolting inside. She doesn't knock, doesn't hesitate. She barges into the apartment, lungs at full capacity. "Tyler! Get away from my dog!" Her voice shakes the walls. The young man sitting at the table nearly jumps out of his skin. He's frozen mid-motion, a handful of cash in his grasp, staring at her like she just materialized out of thin air. Our girl sees the money and loses it. "Where did you get that? You stole from me, didn't you?" Tyler blinks, opens his mouth, closes it, looks at the money in his hands like it just appeared there. Pam isn't waiting for explanations. She's furious. "I let you in my home, I trusted you with my dog, and you robbed me." He leans back, still looking absolutely baffled. "Wait, what?" Tyler blinks at Pam's outburst, then calmly holds out the cash. It's from the bar I work at. It's not exactly safe to count tips at night, so I do it at home." Our girl stares at the money, then at him, then back at the money. Slowly, realization creeps in. She looks ridiculous standing over him like some sort of justice-seeking maniac. But she's not backing down just yet. Arms still crossed, she huffs, "Okay, then explain why I saw Bobby dead on the couch." Tyler leans over, gives Bobby a little nudge, and, just like that, the dog lets out a deep, snoring groan. Pam watches in horror as her dog, very much alive, shifts slightly then raises his head to look around. His legs twitching like he's chasing something in a dream. Tyler raises an eyebrow. "Yeah. Dead tired. We hiked up the mountain today, so the little guy passed out the second we got back." She can feel the shame crawling up her spine. Oh? She might have slightly overreacted. But she's not done embarrassing herself. "Okay, but what about you screaming for tequila? I saw you. You sounded like a lunatic. Are you drunk?" Our guy tilts his head, processing. Then, as if it's the most obvious thing in the world, he points toward the kitchen. "I was looking for tequila. My dog." Our girl freezes. Tyler smirks. "You know, small, furry, not an alcoholic beverage." Silence. Pam wishes the earth would open up and swallow her whole. The young man crosses his arms, clearly amused. "Doggy cam, huh? Next time you decide to spy on me, maybe watch the whole thing before jumping to conclusions." Our girl's face burns, but she refuses to back down. "I wasn't spying. I was." Tyler doesn't let her finish. He stands, stretching, and shakes his head. "For the record, I wasn't looking for any alcohol. I was looking for my dog." Pam blinks. "You're what?" Without another word, Tyler reaches down and scoops up a tiny, very fluffy dog. He lifts her dramatically, full-on Lion King style. "Meet Tequila." Pam stares. Then stares harder. The dog, a ridiculously adorable, wide-eyed ball of fluff, blinks back at her, completely unaware of the chaos she's caused. "This is Tequila." Pam throws her hands up. "You named this tiny, innocent creature Tequila." The young man grins. "Yep." Our girl gapes at him, struggling to process. "So, let me get this straight, you weren't drunk, you weren't screaming for a bottle, you were just yelling for this fluffy little thing." "Exactly," he confirms. "And I'd really appreciate it if you didn't spread rumors about me being a raging alcoholic." Our girl groans, rubbing her temples. "Unbelievable." Tyler shrugs. "Yeah, Tequila is a weird name. But I have my reasons." Pam raises an eyebrow. "Oh, please enlighten me." A slow grin spreads across his face. "Gladly. Step closer." She hesitates, but curiosity wins. She moves in, standing just inches away. Our guy gently takes her hand, his touch surprisingly warm. See, my dog may look smooth and harmless, just like a shot of tequila. He leans in slightly, their bodies brushing. But mix in a little lemon and salt. His voice drops, playful, teasing. And suddenly, there's a burn. Pam glances down at Tequila, who is now staring at her like she's personally offended by her existence. He smirks. Get too familiar with her when you're not her owner, and she will make you regret it. Our female lead gulps. Not because of the dog, but because this young man is really close now. His breath is warm against her cheek, his hands still resting over hers. Their faces are barely centimeters apart. Her brain short-circuits. What is this feeling? Why does she suddenly feel like she's the one taking a shot of tequila? Her heart pounds. Her mind scrambles for an answer. Let's find out. Enjoying this story so far? Drop a comment showing your interest in a part 2, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Until next time, adios.